Welcome to a Chat with Heart podcast. I'm your host, Christina Martin. I'm here to help guide heartfelt conversations with new and old friends I've met from just being alive or touring my music around North America and other parts of the world. I chat with people I feel a kinship with and that I genuinely believe we can learn from. Our personal stories have great power to heal, influence, and inspire. All we have to do is show up for the conversation.
We just talk about it. We could shine a light, we could break a dark day. If we just talk about it, we can cut away, we can make a brighter day.
Hey everyone. You may remember my cat, Mama, horking during the introduction of our last episode with Mike and Kristen. Poor thing. So we brought her to the vet, and she has lungworm. It's fucking gross. But the good news is she's going through her treatment now, and I think she's doing better. She might even be cured. We won't know because we have to do a couple more rounds of the medication. The vet took 2 minutes to politely let me know that our cat was fat, and all we have to do is stop overfeeding her. Who knew? I think she's actually, since the vet visit, she has trimmed down because I guess I needed a healthcare professional to educate me on how much you should feed a cat. I honestly thought that they would just stop eating when they were full. I didn't know that I had to ration her portions. But I mean, it makes sense. I have to ration my portions. So yeah. So we're learning how to feed smaller portion sizes to our cat Mama. And I'm also in the process of figuring out how to brush her teeth. That's right, because she also has a little bit of buildup on her teeth. I had no idea I signed up for all this, but you know what? We're doing it because we love her. If you have any tips for cleaning cats' teeth or maybe for preventing lungworm, call the Heartbeat Hotline. That's right, I have a hotline that you can call. It might be long distance depending on where you're calling from in the world. If you're listening for the first time to this podcast, thank you, for one. But yeah, I have a Heartbeat Hotline. It's a safe space where you can ask me any question, pitch ideas for the podcast or for topics or future guests or just to leave a comment. And I even encourage prank calls, but still, to this day, nobody has taken me up on this opportunity. Anyway, the number is 902-669-4769. Just know that your message will probably be used on the podcast or on my social media. For this episode, we're going to do things a little bit differently. In 2021, when nothing was really happening in terms of live music, entertainment, we all know why, but I chatted with some of my friends. They're hosts of a very special kind of live music venue. It's called a house concert. A house concert is when a homeowner invites a musician they love to come and perform in a room of their house or in the backyard or somewhere on the property for their family and friends and colleagues. These are venues where people come to listen to music, so nobody talks while the music is being performed, unless, the audience is singing along or laughing or crying in response to the music. These are spaces where people come together to hear the music, but they also come together to visit with friends and to make new friends. It's really cool. I can remember living in Austin, Texas in the early 2000s, and that is where I performed my very first house concert in my friend and my boss's backyard, Amy. There was food, and we made a little stage area in the backyard, and I invited a couple of my musician friends to participate. People paid for tickets to attend, and I remember thinking, I could get used to this. So since then, I did a rough tally. I've performed about 200 house concerts around North America and Europe and the United Kingdom, over the last decade. House concerts have played a really important role in building lasting connections and fans for my music, and I know it's done the same for many of my musician friends. And now with the pandemic restrictions being lifted, hosts are getting back to having musicians perform in their home. I've got some house concerts lined up myself for next year. I'm so excited to get back to that. Okay, so in this episode, you're going to hear from the hosts of house concerts. These are dear friends of mine. And if you're interested in attending or hosting a house concert, I hope these chats will inspire you to find a house concert or reach out about organizing one yourself. We're going to get started, though, by chatting with my friend Matt Epp, who is also featured in his own episode of season 1 of A Chat with Heart podcast. He is no stranger to the house concert scene.
I don't know what the very first house concert I did was, but I'm from Winnipeg, and in Winnipeg they've got this company that Mitch Podolak started. Our late friend Mitch, that was also involved in the Winnipeg Folk Fest, Stan Rogers, like as a founding member. So Mitch started this thing called Home Roots, or Chemin Chez Nous. Knowing those guys and women that were booking all that stuff helped a lot for me to get, to get immersed in it. I won't mention the name, but I did get reached out to one time, a long time ago, by a woman from out east here, and she was going to come tour Manitoba in the winter for the first time. And she said, "Hey, do you want to come and help me drive? And I'll pay you a bit of money to help me drive around on this tour." But I was a fan of the songwriting of this woman, so I said, "Yeah, for sure, I'll come do it." But we got halfway through the route, and what had happened was she found out that I was a songwriter too. And so at the end of the show, to build rapport with the audience, she would ask me, who's like basically the tour manager, if I'd come up and sing a song, and she'd sing harmony with me.
Nice.
And it went well the first few times. And then she realized that I was kind of like capping the evening, and that I was a surprise for everyone. And so people wanted to talk to me after, and they liked it. And they were like, "Do you want to do a house concert?" And the attention shifted. And then so like one day, is probably halfway through, maybe the 6th show or something like that. And we were up north pretty far. And while I was sleeping, she packed the vehicle that I had been driving and left me there. And she like just took off.
What? Because she was jealous because you were so much better than her?
Well, I don't know if it was that, but she was jealous, yeah.
That's wild.
The blessing was that the host from this house concert ran out and kind of confronted her on this and was like, "What are you doing? Like, are you ditching? Are you ditching Matt? He's sleeping at 7 a.m. And she couldn't say anything. She basically, she bounced. And then, but this host family ended up finding me a ride back to the city, and it turned into a wonderful relationship with them. And then it turned into like an extra level of trust and stuff with Home Roots.
Yeah.
And so then they gave me the same route shortly after that in Manitoba. Okay. And then they gave me the route up in the Yukon, which changed my life.
Oh, yeah?
Changed my life to go up there. So I got to go all the way to Old Crow up in the Arctic Circle. And those were some of my first house concert experiences. And even the ones that are in Manitoba, where I was from, or as far as the Yukon or all over Europe, house concerts have become one of the most important things in not only in my career, but in my life's work, in my calling. It's the most effective place for hearts to beat together. That proximity and that line that draws between my heart and yours, like we have it because we're old friends. And we know each other and love each other. And so we always have a line between our hearts.
We're tight.
Some of these other, me and you are tight, Pound. We're Zoom Pound.
Yeah.
But
that.
if you I know. And when you're in that room, and I know you've experienced this too, I've experienced this watching you. And where all the lines are not connecting only from the audience members to your heart, like a bunch of spider webs, but also between the people sitting there. Everybody syncs up and shares something together, and we get to be just the host of that, even though we're being hosted. And you know what I'm talking about.
Every house concert story is unique, how they got started. But the constant is a host with a love for live music, a love for bringing people together, and a love for creating connection. For the rest of this episode, you're going to hear from house concert hosts about how they got started. The first host you'll hear from is Kerstin, the host of Wohnzimmerkonzert in Reutlingen, Germany. Why did you start hosting house concerts? How did this come about?
Actually, I went to see an English singer-songwriter in Delmenhorst up north. This is my hometown. And I was very fond of his music, and we got into talking. And later on, after the concert, we chatted on Facebook. And he asked me, whether I said, maybe I'd like to see you again. Maybe you can play like down south, so I don't have to ride like 700 kilometers to see you. And he wanted to know, where he could actually play. And I said, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm not from this area. And then he suggested, playing at my living room. And I think it was a joke. And I was like, why not? And then he was like, why not? And this is when it all started, 2012, if I remember correctly. Wow. And the very first concert was just with 17 people. We didn't have any light. We didn't have any technical stuff,
Just unplugged, acoustic.
Unplugged, yes. Yeah. And everybody was very nervous. Nick Parker, the English guy, he was scared to death because he had never done that before and didn't know what to expect from a German hosting a house concert. And I was scared to death because I didn't really know him at all. And everybody was like, why would you invite someone to your home if you don't even know that person? And I said, just because. And it started from there. And we've been hosting many gigs since then. So when we all started, we didn't know anyone who wanted to come to our place. And so we went to concerts, and just had a look at singer and songwriters, mostly from Canada or the UK. And then we just, approached that artist, and talked to the person and just, invited them to our place. And these days we still do that, but we don't have to do that because they are spreading the word. So people are actually approaching us.
Now you're going to hear from Liz and Paul, the hosts of Lansdowne Concert Series in Fredericton, New Brunswick, here in Atlantic Canada. Tell my little heartbeats, how long have you been hosting house concerts and what got you started on this?
In the fall of 2010, we went to Halifax and we had some friends there. And they said, we go to these concerts. And they house concerts, and we see David Miles and Matt Anderson. You've seen David Miles and Matt Anderson? We were just like, are you kidding?
These are big names here in the Atlantic Canada.
Yeah, but back that was 2010, so it was a little different. But anyway, and they said, you just take a cushion, take a bottle of wine, go sit down, and it's lovely. And we thought, oh man, that's really great. We want to do that in Fredericton. So we came back to Fredericton. And we couldn't find any. Nobody was, there might have been somebody doing it, but we couldn't find it. And we didn't hear about it. And we asked around and nobody seemed to know. But our friends had told us about Acoustic Roof, which is a website that exists and based in Nova Scotia. And so we went on there and they said, you want to do a house concert? You just sign up here and put your name and information in. And so we thought, let's do that. Hey, we don't know anything about it, but let's do it, Yeah.
How many people were at your first, this was at your home, your first house concert?
At our home.
In Sherwood.
Yeah.
And in how many people did you manage to get that first night?
Well, we had 35 or something.
I wouldn't even think it was that many.
Maybe
I would think it would be
25.
I think 25 is more likely because I was in our old house and we didn't have a very big room to put it in either.
Here's George and Monique, the hosts of Patchwork House Concerts in Bedford, Nova Scotia.
So our first show was in March of 2008. And we started kind of on a whim, and then we decided to post our venue on this website, and so we had to give it a name. And the idea of Patchwork House Concerts came up for a couple of reasons. One is that I am the youngest of 8 kids, 5 girls, and I like to say that 8 kids because my parents were Catholic and they had a 3/4 bed, right?
Mm-mm.
And every bed growing up had a patchwork quilt that my mother or my grandmother made. And my 4 sisters all made quilts, except I'm the only one that can't sew a stitch. But I do have a lot of patchwork quilts, and they're very special to me. And we thought patchwork is kind of a neat, I don't know what the word is, but metaphor for our family, because, we're like a patchwork quilt. We are 5 individuals in this home, and we had 4 surnames. Our kids each had, 2 homes and sets of step parents and ties to multiple countries. Mm-hmm. So we were kind of like a patchwork quilt of a family that came together to do this really cool thing. And our kids got into it, and we just had so much joy over the years welcoming musicians and guests and music loving people like us into our home.
Your kids made me a lot of money.
Really
great at merch selling, at least when they were young. I mean, they grew up and weren't so interested anymore. Yeah. But man, when they were in their PJs or onesies and
it was Yan with the onesies. That was pretty funny. He'd come down and collect. Early on, it was pass a basket around, right? And Yan liked to do that.
He did,
and he was exceedingly cute in his onesie. Yeah,
it was hard to say. I think it would be hard to say no to him. He was so cute and it's time to buy a CD. You want to buy a CD? Like, he was just so convincing.
Yeah.
Really good. Yeah. So,
and then if they didn't buy one, he would pout.
And they had no problem with him. They didn't want any of the money either. I think I tried to slip some money, but anyway,
you never did.
They just were they loved collecting it and handing it over to the musician. Anyway, I mean, I've got so many wonderful, fuzzy, warm, lovely memories and from your concerts performing, but also like my favorite part is often getting to eat with you before.
Yeah, well, the next time you come back, we're making vegan lentil soup.
Okay, cool.
Now, Christina, you aware that one of the reasons we got into doing house concerts has a Christina Martin component to it?
I didn't know that.
That's right, because I used, Paula Fredericks, who started Acoustic Roof and had the Lift the Wind concert series. Well, my old house is next door. And Isabel and I spent time before I met Monique. We were good friends of Mike and Paula's, and Isabel ran back and forth between the houses. And so it was Paula that introduced us to house concerts. And I think one of the very first ones I attended that sort of got me inspired was you were in it. It was you and Jill Barber and Megan Smith.
Megan Smith, yes, I remember that.
And the 3 of you were playing, and I was there, and I thought, this is really cool. And it was before I even met Monique.
Really?
And so then we went to at least a couple more over there, and it took us a long time to get up the nerve. Like Monique and I both thought it was cool, and it took us a while to get up the nerve, didn't it? And and I remember our first one was Rose Cousins and
good first.
Carey.
And Edie Carey.
Yeah, Edie Carey and Rose Cousins.
Yeah.
That's a winner. That is a winning concert.
We had lots of winners.
We've had
winners.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you for sharing that, because I wasn't aware of that, or I'd forgotten, but I remember that concert, and I know Paula, and that website. I remember I met so many, contacts through there, and so many house concerts through there. And it was, it really helped us. We have friendships today with house concert hosts that, they came from that website. So the network worked. All right. Now you're going to hear from my friend Laura Simpson, who not only is the host of a wonderful house concert I love in Halifax, Nova Scotia, called The Syrup Factory, but she's also the co-founder of Side Door, an online platform that connects artists and hosts to book memorable shows in any space.
You were the first guest.
I was the actual first guest? Really? Are you sure?
I'm almost positive that you were the first guest and Chris Ludica was the second.
Oh my goodness.
And because there's a picture of one of the babies on your lap at the piano.
Charlie.
I measure my house concert experience almost by the age of the children because we started in 2011 and they were born in 2009 and 2010. So it was 2009 birth of one child, 2010 birth of second, 2011 birth of the Syrup Factory.
What led you to that decision of like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to call it the Syrup Factory.
Well, you have a great podcast / radio voice, by the way.
Oh, thanks. I've been working on it just like 15 minutes before we got started.
What?
Like, no.
You got to give me a warning here. I could have done the same thing. I ate 3 pancakes and maple syrup before I talked.
Oh, yeah.
It's appropriate then that I ate syrup to talk about the Syrup Factory. That's why I did it, just to bring on the sweetness, dripping with metaphor and silly sweetness. I'll tell you the story. So my partner and I, when we were looking for a house to live in, we had outgrown our first house because it was a 1-bedroom and we now had 2 children, one of which was sleeping in a bassinet on the landing of the stairs and the other one in the bed with us.
Tight.
It was a tight fit. So we were looking, we couldn't afford to live right in the city. So we looked outside of the city for a long time. But then a friend of ours who is a real estate agent, he said, there's this place coming up just near the Commons in Halifax. And it's an amazing location, but it's quite a fixer-upper. And so we went to this place and we had to kick the door in to get in. It was unlocked. And
start.
As soon as you walk in, there was a massive hole in the floor that went all the way up, started at the roof and all the way down to the basement. It was filled with pigeons. It was actually known in the neighborhood as the Pigeon Lady's House or the Pigeon House. And it was abandoned. The person who owned it hadn't lived there for a very long time and over a decade. And actually there were squatters living there. And so the electricity was on. So they were using like the old stove to heat it. There was a barrel in the backyard that had been used for burning things. It was like the Fight Club house, if you remember that movie.
Yeah. Wow.
It was fascinating and beautiful. And you could tell this house had such goodness in it and had just been left to rot, really. And we walked into this, it's a traditional Victoria style house. And right away, Scott and I said, we can have house concerts here. That was like one of the first things we said when we walked in there. And I don't know, the before times, like when we weren't having house concerts because we didn't have the space, was just the pending moment to that me saying that, because it was always going to happen. It was always something that he and I cared deeply about, was live music, and to be able to host was the deepest honor. And so when we walked in and we saw the space available, that's what we envisioned for it. So we called it the Syrup Factory ultimately, after about a year and a half of renovations.
That's all. I mean, it sounded like it could have gone on and on and on and on for years.
Oh, and we only got it really to warm, safe, and dry. Like there's a lot of, I would call the distressed look that we have maintained in that house, only because we were able to get it to warm, safe, and dry. But in the backyard, there was a concrete slab, and slab is such a murderous word. It's more of a pad. I'm going to change my words. Okay.
You're gonna swap out slab for pad?
Yeah. Okay. So the name, the Syrup Factory, came from this concrete pad in the backyard that we discovered actually was because there used to be a cordial making factory in this place. And for us, we just renamed it to the syrup factory, meaning, a place where sweetness can come from. We can create something lovely and sweet to share with everyone. A celebratory kind of word.
So beautiful. When you think about intention behind something, your mission with the house concerts alone, packed with intention, very clear. I asked my guests why they thought house concerts were such a hit. Here's what Kirsten had to say.
It's not about, solely about the concert. It's like a big package, you get to meet people, by having a pre-gig dinner, you talk about things, you get to know the artist, and it's so much more. I think probably being mesmerized, and full of joy, the good feelings, like concerts make you laugh, they also make you cry sometimes, but you're being, our lives being enriched by the stories you tell as well. It's not just music, it's also stories, right? You connect on different levels, right? It's not just about music, as I said before, but also as human beings and learn about other cultures.
For anybody who has never been to a house concert, can you summarize why they might give it a shot?
Yeah, first of all, I suggest attend one today. Go there. Yeah, don't wait any longer. It's probably one of the best experiences you can have. You will not regret it. And basically, it will make you happy. And everybody I'm talking to, and maybe you remember, we have this, I can show you this book, remember, where people write into like whatever they feel and think or maybe want to say. And if I go through that, after the concert, it's all about being emotionally involved, being happy. Sometimes people also write down, I cried, because it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
And to thank you, you rock, whatever. Yeah. So that's for you. And if you go through what they write, you can tell that they are full of happiness afterwards. And that's why I think you should actually, if you haven't attended yet, go there. Attend a house concert, and it's a special experience, and you won't regret that. With our house concerts and house concerts as such, people come there and they want to listen.
Yeah.
So they listen to the lyrics, they listen to the music, even if they don't, understand it all, because we mostly have people from Canada or the US or England, because I love English so much. That's, it doesn't matter. They can still get the message and they can still get the feeling.
Now over to Liz and Paul. So were you hooked from that first one? Like, what kept you going all these years with the house concert?
I would say absolutely. I mean, Ian just knocked our socks off. We just thought, we couldn't believe the quality of music that you could have in your home. And I mean, he was just so, he taught us well. He gave us lots of ideas, and he was just so pleasant to be with, and his music was so much fun and engaging, and the audience loved it, and we were hooked from then on. We just wanted to do more and more and more because it was such a good experience.
Over to Monique and George again.
One of the things we really like too is finding new artists, oftentimes people that are just getting going, and then really trying to build a show for them when maybe they don't have much name recognition. Yeah. And sometimes that involves pairing them up with people and things like that. And so that's always been fun as well, right? And something we've really enjoyed.
Back to Laura at the Syrup Factory.
The way that I remember describing, especially house concerts to somebody else, is like, being able to hear the breath before the first word of the lyric, and being able to hear the strings squeak before you play a note, and just being actually close enough to the artist to, live performance to me is not about you're not a consumer. You're not a you are part of what is happening. And house concerts force the audience to be aware of how their every move and noise and even their own inner intention of being there can affect the larger performance and the experience of that. And to me, that is a crucible of learning and understanding that can just reverberate into the rest of your life. Like if you cannot do that, if you cannot be present in a moment like that where a gift is being bestowed on you that somebody has created out of nothing, something beautiful, and they are giving it to you as a gift, and you cannot receive it in an open and honorable way, then what are we doing outside of that? Like, how do you have conversations with people? How do you interact with people? How do you work with people? How do you, even when you're debating with somebody, how do you honor that somebody is in front of you and, that they are another human?
In the decade or so that I've been a touring musician, I have noticed that not all venues are accessible to everyone. Sometimes there are physical barriers. Other times there are barriers that are not so visible. I think it's important to consider the comfort level of everyone involved, especially the audience. I mean, as an artist, if there's no audience, then there's no show. And it's important to me that I look out when I'm performing and people, are comfortable and they feel welcomed and they that they're enjoying themselves and that they feel like they're a part of something. I have noticed, though, more and more venues are asking the question, how can we reduce barriers to accessing art for audiences? How can we be more inclusive, accessible? And they're finding solutions that benefit everyone. I really love how Liz and Paul were able to make their house concert venue more inclusive.
Part of the reason we bought this house was because the other house didn't work really well for house concerts. So to some extent we moved because of the need to create a better venue. It has to be accessible. We're not going to buy anything that isn't accessible. So the people who are coming in wheelchairs or for other reasons and have difficulty getting around with mobility, that we wanted to make it available to people like that, for sure. And we have some of our best, most ardent attenders are people who have disability issues. So
I think one of the things we've noticed is that maybe particularly women, but not necessarily, who love music but wouldn't want to go to a bar or pub alone to listen to music, or feel perfectly safe and comfortable at a house concert. That it seems totally a-okay to come to this kind of venue on your own, and inevitably, because we live in a small community, you're going to know a lot of people in the room. It's just the way it goes. And I guess even if you don't, people all chat with each other. You're not going to feel as though you're sitting there at the end of the bar with a drink all by yourself all night listening to the music. You're going to be with a crowd of people who totally accept you into the circle and chat with you and make you feel comfortable and safe. It does provide another kind of venue for people who wouldn't necessarily go out on their own.
And I think that, like most research into therapies for anxiety, for instance, and depression, we really stipulate that one of the common elements in successful therapies is getting the person involved in doing things, getting them to do things. And so if you have people that are struggling with things, such issues, I think if this affords an opportunity that wouldn't otherwise be there, then it's great because they actually are doing something. They're coming in contact with other people, but it's at a level that maybe is tolerable for them.
Here's what Kirsten had to say about why house concerts can be a great option for individuals living with an invisible disability, like maybe a music lover who lives with heightened anxiety.
That's the good thing about it. You can choose. You can be right in the middle of everything, or you can observe things and stay outside, but still you are connected, you're included, because it's all in all, it's not such a big room. And if you have to deal with anxiety, it's the perfect thing you can do. It's not as bad as, going to big concerts, and you can still enjoy some lovely music.
I chatted with all these hosts about what it was like during the pandemic. And it was kind of heartbreaking because some of them were on the brink of tears. But you know what? All of my guests that I'm chatting with today are officially back to hosting house concerts. But I didn't want to leave out the bit about, what it was like for them when they couldn't do this thing that they love to do so much. So here's what Kirsten had to say. What's it been like for you not hosting?
Horrible.
I'm sorry.
I'm very much into, organizing house concerts because, you spread the love, you spread the music, and everybody after a concert is like, full of joy, and just you make people very, very happy with that. But to be honest, I think it was even worse for you guys, the artists not being able to play, because we have other jobs, to get our money from, and we're not getting any money from the house concerts anyway. But I think for us, it was horrible because we couldn't do anything, but it was even worse for the artists who couldn't come and do their business.
Let's hear from Liz.
The whole first year of COVID, I just felt lonely. I really, really missed having those people come through our house and create all that vibrancy and excitement and stuff around each house concert.
I had to ask about top memories from my house concert hosts. Sometimes things get super psychedelic.
There are no bad memories at all. Never ever has there been a real negative memory. Most of them have been very funny. You might remember one. You were playing at our place, and Andy, our sound and light guy, had just put on a new light show, and it was right behind you. So, and later on you told me you were so scared to turn around and look at it because you thought we were getting hypnotized by it. It was some weird psychedelic. Oh, yeah. Remember those beams coming up?
Yes.
And everybody was like,
yes, it got super psychedelic. Over to Liz and Paul.
99% have been so positive that, the day after a concert, we smile all day. Just how lovely that was and how much fun we had and how great that artist was.
We were very honored to have Ron Hines perform in the summer before he died. He died in November, I think, I think it was early November. And in July that year, he performed 2 concerts here. Both of them were sold out. And everybody there knew they would not see him again, I think. Yeah. And a lot of tears, and that was sad. But at the same time, we were just so honored to have that guy.
Monique and George.
It's been pretty well across the board, a lovely experience. The only time we're so committed to trying to get an audience out, right? And sometimes it can be hard to get audiences out.
Yeah.
And I guess we feel kind of bummed if we've booked a show and then, we've got 10 people that have committed. And that happens once in a while. And you kind of know that the artist is going to be bummed and you feel kind of bummed. That's the only time I can think of that it's a drag. But the flip side is when somebody's coming through and, one thing about Nova Scotia is there's an insane density of super talented musicians here. I don't know of any place in the world that has such a density of insanely good musicians. So one of the bad effects of that is that people can be a little fickle, right? So that, then there's a lot to choose from. And when somebody is just starting or somebody's coming through and they don't have that name recognition yet, it can be really hard to get a foothold in Halifax. And the other thing that house concerts do is they help people get that foothold. People come to a house concert and maybe they do only have 15 or 20 people that show up. But when those 15 or 20 people are blown away, the next time they come, they pack the house.
One of my highlights was not really an official house concert, but it was when you and Stephen Bowers came and did my birthday.
Oh, that was so fun.
And my mom was here. That was a very special night. That was really cool. Yeah. And I also like the shows where people are all singing along. That's really fun. And so, you come a few times and then people come and they know your stuff and they can sing along. And, I tend to tell everybody about house concerts, including where I work. And so most of my colleagues are in Ottawa. And years ago, we used to have this internal magazine and they wanted stories from what people did, in their past times or whatever. And so I put a story about house concerts. And one of the photographs that was an examples of great shows we had just had was when you came with Cuff the Duke.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that was
And
fun.
so it went out, the publication went out, and I got an email from the number 2 in command who said, "Oh my God, I can't believe you had Cuff the Duke. They're awesome."
Yeah.
And so then I tell colleagues who live across the country. And so now I've got you have some Christina Martin fans in Alberta because I kept sharing, I've been sharing my musical recommendations, right, with colleagues.
Yeah. But, it's hard to pin down special moments because there've been so many of them. There's been so many just magical evenings and shows that we've had over the years.
So if you want to host a house concert, it's absolutely possible. The hosts you've heard from today were all beginners at one point, and now they're here sharing their tips as longtime house concert hosts and music fans. Some of them have even gone on to host events in larger venues, like Liz and Paul.
Communicating with people before they come and giving them lots of detail about what to expect, what's going to happen, where we're located, so they're not wandering around wondering where things are. So just making it very clear. We put a sign out on the road on the edge of the property which says Lansdowne Concert Series tonight, Christina Martin, and so that when they come along for the first time, they go, "Oh yeah, that's the place," so they know. It's just that kind of detail that really makes them feel they're in the right place.
Food makes a party too. It makes people comfortable. And so we do have a bring your own appies, a bring shareable appies suggestion. And so people are all coming in with plates of food, and it's sort of, that a party atmosphere from then on. And then we put at the set break, we can all mingle and chat. And I think that makes people very comfortable as well.
We really want to have a listening venue. So we tell people in advance, this is a listening venue, that when the artists are performing, you don't talk.
You have this beautiful listening room in your basement, which is at par with some of the great listening rooms we've performed at, like, Hughes Room in Toronto or the Carlton in Halifax. And you always fill it, and there's the stage. Now, not every house concert has to have these things in order to have a successful house concert, but if I were a house concert host, that's the route I personally would go because I like a stage. But the chairs, the way you set up the chairs.
Theater style,
Theater style.
So,
the lighting,
and that also creates a listening environment. That if you put things up in a cafe style, you're more likely to get talking than if you put them in a theater style. So
that's right.
It's sort of knowing how to create, and I think even having introductions to the acts is important because that marks the beginning. Okay, now we all sit here chatting, and now somebody gets up, introduces the artist, and then all of a sudden the concert begins, and that is a clear signal to everybody that we're going to listen now. Change in activity.
So. I love how you set it up, and then even before the second half, usually you do another announcement.
Yeah, a little short announcement.
I believe. You get up at the end as well, I think.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, see ya.
Yeah, I usually say something. I'm trying to say something.
Or announce the next one if we know who's coming next.
Yeah. But I usually thank the artist, and I just think those kinds of punctuation activities are really important to sort of create, to let the audience know what's happening in a sense. Rather than leave it ambiguous,
Yeah, I agree.
Planning, I think.
Planning.
I think probably
Attention to detail.
I think what I would say is start off by talking to somebody who's done a house concert.
Mhm.
And or go to one yourself, right? I've had people say, I'm going to run house concerts, and I realize they've never been to one.
Yeah.
So I think we had never been to one when we started. So, but I realize that the planning part is really crucial.
Here's Kirsten.
First of all, it doesn't really matter, because some people say, oh, I would love to do that, but, my living room is too small. It doesn't matter. The size in this case doesn't matter. We always checked out the artist first. So, like, when you were playing, I think it was Cafe Hague, I saw you first.
Yes. And you came. I remember that.
Yeah, we went there, and you can tell right away whether, the musicians are cool with being very close, whether they interact with your audience. If they're very shy, maybe don't open their eyes, or just don't interact, they might not be good for a house concert.
Here's Laura, who I mentioned earlier is the co-founder of Side Door, an online platform with the mission to connect venues and hosts to have concerts anywhere. Big shout out to them for snagging a Dragon's Den deal this year. What I've loved about my Side Door events is finding hosts that I just would not have discovered on my own outside of Side Door. And we were connected through that platform alone. So it's a great opportunity, I think, to expand your network of venues, and also to build brand new audiences, and to do that in and around the markets that you already tour. It doesn't even matter, because these connections can bring you to a city or town, a community for the first time. So if you're looking to host an event, a house concert or another type of event, or if you're an artist looking to perform, check out sidedooraccess.com.
Well, yeah, part of Side Door's mission was to daylight house concerts, make them visible to the general public and allow people to buy tickets easily. And if you don't have them around you, to create one yourself in your own space. So it's not just for us, it didn't have to be a house, and it didn't have to be a concert. So it was always like, whatever space you have available that you would like to host in, and then we have some amazing, spaces, public spaces, commercial spaces.
Yeah.
People have private shows in their workplaces, all sorts of things. And the big thing is that, it didn't have to be a house, it didn't have to be a concert, but the idea is that you're pulling together people who are looking for an experience, or like-minded about what the kind of experience they want to have. And usually that means there's a focus on the performance. Mm-hmm. There is an honoring that performance has value, and intrinsic value. And so whether or not you're paying for that performance, or you're honoring that if it's free, with your focus and attention, or your just the way you're holding yourself at that concert, like that to us is sort of very central to the kind of shows that we're looking for. And it's why we actually seek people rather than spaces and like labels and managers. We're looking for people who care about those things. Mm-hmm. And house concerts, like, it's interesting when you talk about this fear that people have, and it's true, like, lots of people have not experienced this. I think they think about it like going to a house party and having to mingle and talk to people. Whereas, like, when we have a house concert, there are lots of people who come and sit down, and they actually just look at the stage silently when nobody's there until it starts, because they're there for the show and they're not there to mingle. And part of the joy is that they don't have to mingle. They can just sit there and enjoy the experience, and not be at a loud bar with having somebody bump into them and spill beer on them. Like, this can be a dedicated experience to the performance. So that's sort of like, that's the main parts that make it special. And it's interesting, like, whenever we were going around pitching Side Door to people, the ones who had been to a show like this got it right away. The other ones couldn't do the math.
Yeah, you have to. It's one of those things you have to experience for yourself.
Yeah.
Try it
And
out.
now we just send people. We're like, okay, we'll talk to you, but here's the show you can go and see maybe before we talk. And we really urge people to do that. We'll buy tickets for them to go and do that because you got to know what you're talking about. And it's really hard to just describe what's happening at these spaces, you know.
I want to thank all of my guests today who shared their experiences with us and who have hosted me and Dale in their homes in the past and in the future. And, you know, a special shout out too to Paula and Mike, who ran acousticriff.ca for so many years. And that website, which is no longer operating, but it helped me and so many other artists connect with a lot of the guests who I spoke with today, a lot of the house concert hosts. And also big shout out to Home Roots, based in Winnipeg. They're booking house concert tours for artists across Canada. In 2019, we did the first Newfoundland and Labrador route, and we also did the Manitoba route. That was really, really exciting. I was trying to come up with a specific house concert memory that I loved, but to be honest, there are too many. I think my favorite thing, though, about every house concert is getting to know our hosts and hearing their stories, just about their lives and what they're passionate about. And then I love the performing part. I love being close to the audience and sharing stories and just the feeling in that type of venue that I think, is kind of a mutual feeling. It's hard to explain, which is why I recommend just going. Just go to a house concert and check it out for yourself. I really want to thank Dale Murray, the podcast editor, also my best friend. He as well tours with me. So we both know and love the house concert scene. Thanks, Dale. We've talked about editing this special episode featuring house concerts for over a year, and we finally did it. If you have any questions or comments, call my Heartbeat hotline, 902-669-4769. I would be thrilled to see you at a future house concert that I'm performing at, and also happy to answer your questions about how to host a house concert.
I don't wanna say goodbye to you. Oh, I don't wanna say goodbye to you.
Thanks for listening to A Chat with Heart podcast, produced and written by me, Christina Martin, and co-produced and engineered by Dale Murray. Check out Dale's website, dalemurray.ca. The podcast theme song, Talk About It, and I Don't Want to Say Goodbye to You were written by me and recorded by Dale Murray. You can find my music on Bandcamp and all the places you stream music. Visit my Patreon page to become a monthly or yearly supporter of this podcast and my music endeavors. If you're new to Patreon, it's a membership platform that helps creators get paid. Sign up at patreon.com/Christina Martin. I would love it if you had time to share, rate, leave a review, and subscribe to A Chat with Heart on all the places you listen to podcasts. Wishing you, my little heartbeats, a great day.